Good day to all our viewers. I'm quite excited that today we start a new series of interviews and small webinars where we invite new colleagues. Today having Greg Bradshaw, who just recently joined the board of directors. We're very excited, Greg being here as part of the first webinar that we want to start on the new series. We will also go and introduce some of the industry and government stakeholders that the company is working with. So stay tuned, and I'm again very pleased that Greg is joining for our first session. Greg, just that you've joined the board, we are all very excited. We'd love to give an opportunity just for a quick introduction maybe. And why did you decide a long time ago to take on a tungsten project and be one of the veterans in the industry?
Yeah, no, excellent question. And firstly, thank you for EQ Resources for welcoming me onto the board. Appreciate it. I think EQ is at an interesting time in its development, and there's a lot of opportunities in front of the company. Me personally, I've spent now 30 odd years in the mining industry, doing mining or logistics or services for mining companies. I joined Masan Group in Vietnam to originally build the new EFAO project. At the time, it was the first new tungsten project built outside China in 15 years, right? And fundamentally, the reason I joined was the challenge that presented going into a new commodity, developing a new mine. It was something that others hadn't done or no one had done for 15 years. And so for me, that was the challenge. You know, I'd come out of working in copper, gold, silver, lead, zinc for large mining companies, and doing a startup with a junior in a new commodity was really interesting, right? And
Yep.
EFAO was complex with tungsten, fluorspar, bismuth, and copper. And pleasingly, we made it work, and it continues to operate today as a very successful company and organisation.
Yeah, and compared to maybe 10 years ago when you started the project to looking at the applications today and the requirements for your customers, I mean, the landscape of applications is changing dramatically.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting being in what I'd classify as unique minerals, right? So when you look at tungsten, historically, it's 50% of tungsten consumption has gone into tools for high-speed manufacturing. Today, more and more tungsten is consumed in other applications. Tungsten is going into batteries, not just for EVs, but in terms of batteries for static applications. And so, and the tungsten, and that's going into the cathode as coating, it's going into the electrolyte, it's going into the anode as a replacement for graphite. And the reason for that is it creates stability for the battery. So it enables fast charging, higher energy density, long life batteries. It stops the battery from overheating, which fundamentally causes degradation of the battery and potentially fires and all sorts of things, right? It's also now going into, one of the big advancements in energy that is being explored, or research and development has been conducted in the US, UK, France, and other countries, is fission technology. Right? And ultimately, if that's successful, it's a long-term cheap source of energy, right? To make that effective, all of the shielding associated with that is tungsten, right? And so, there's been significant advancements in the technology already over the last 5 years. Expectations are in the next 5 years it will be commercially viable. And from that perspective, tungsten consumption in that is currently not significant, but would probably become the major use for tungsten going forward. So you look at all these new applications, there's lots of spaces for increasing tungsten consumption.
Yeah. So that means from here onwards, I mean, it will be more exciting because we can have, or we will have a wider range of customers for our products at EQ, and with your relationships in the industry, that will be certainly very helpful.
And look, absolutely. And when you look at it, China dominates the tungsten space. 84% of tungsten comes from China, right? And that's structurally as a result of things that China did in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in terms of the global market, right? The rest of the world today is looking for alternate sources of supply. No one who's undertaking good business practices wants one supplier. Everyone wants minimum 2 suppliers, normally 3. You know, people go out to tender, they go to three companies, right?
Yeah.
In tungsten, who are you going to go to, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where companies like EQ Resources, with the mine in Australia, the mine in Spain, become crucially important to the global tungsten supply chain.
Let's talk about that one a little bit, Greg, again, for the viewers and our shareholders and friends. You have been in the market for so long. You have been around, you have seen most of the developments in China, but also or operations in China, but also outside. You've come across Mount Carbine yourself in your career, looking at it. I know the details, but maybe share a little bit Spain as well. You have been in the project. You have been looking at it since its early development. So maybe you can comment a bit on that.
Yeah, look, to be fair, I got outmaneuvered on both those projects, right? And so at a point in time, I wanted to acquire Mount Carbine. I think it was a good asset. I wanted to acquire Solaro. I think it's a good asset. But timing-wise, it didn't work in terms of me acquiring them at those points in time, right? I think EQR has done very well in terms of picking up very good assets. EQ's had its challenges in developing those assets, but I think you're actually a long way through that process. Yeah. Tungsten today, the mines that are getting developed are more difficult, right? And many of them have unique challenges. And so you need new technologies or better technologies to unlock those assets. And I think the skill sets that EQ in particular brought to the table to those assets in ore sorting and some of the processing technologies you're now applying were the secret to actually unlocking those assets, right? Today, every project, whether it's in tungsten or other minerals, is going to be challenged, right? Because all the easy projects have been developed predominantly, right? And so you need unique skill sets and capabilities to unlock those assets.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe, and one of the reasons why I'm excited about joining EQR is the fact that you're at a unique pivoting point from where we are today.
Yeah.
And it's exciting.
Yeah, excellent. Let's come back to China for a moment, Greg. I mean, you've mentioned, and I think our investors and shareholders and friends and people who follow the industry, they recognize the dominance of China, which certainly helps our mandate of supplying these critical materials into the Western world. And as recently announced, we have signed large offtake contracts with consumers. And as you highlighted, the applications are just developing so fastly into new tech. I think it will be definitely an exciting period that we are entering in. China's dominance, nevertheless, is also a threat to many people. And people confront us with questions around, will they go back, flood the market? You know, what's their incentives? You have been around. I can share with our viewers that you, Greg, have always been a great source of knowledge and insights for me as well when it comes to China. Again, you have a customer base there. You had even an operations in China. So you are part of the ecosystem. Just share with us your view on how do you see us jointly as EQR positioned within a market that is so overwhelmingly dominated by China. Can we live in coexistence with the Chinese industry?
Yeah, well, I think you got to look at motivations, right? And if you have a look at when China developed its tungsten industry through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Part of that, what China needed to do at that point in time was to buy market share, right? And it wasn't just tungsten, it was in rare earths, it was in a whole lot of different industries. They needed to buy market share, right? And in doing that, the way they bought market share was to actually offer low prices, which they could offer because the mines that they were developing at the time were higher grade, they were at surface, and as a result of that, their cost of production was low, right? You fast forward to where we are today, 30, 40, 50 years down the track, their mines today are much deeper, they are lower grade, they've got a variety of technical challenges as well because the easy mines have been developed in China. The ones they're developing today are harder to develop. And so their marginal cost of production today compared to what it was 30, 40 years ago is much higher in not dissimilar ways for most mines across all different commodities, right? And so today you're looking at a marginal cost of production in China of $260, $270 an MTU, right? And therefore, the way in which economic policy in China today works, they may get subsidies or support, but the government does not compensate them from a market perspective to sell significantly lower price into the markets. And it's not what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And today, you look at what China has done in the real estate market, and you look at the motivations there in terms of, and how you translate that into other products, right? The government is allowing certain businesses to fail in China or to recapitalise in China on the basis they're not economically viable, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're now looking at in other minerals and other industries, right?
Yeah.
Exports out of China today are significantly less in a lot of different commodities than what they were 20, 30 years ago as their own market has developed, right? So China has gone from, if you like, exporting raw materials to now exporting tools and downstream products, right? Because that's where the value is. And therefore they need that tungsten for their own downstream production. They're not incentivized to sell it at low prices in the rest of the world. They don't need to.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting point that you say that basically developed industry, they went downstream with their own products, with their own critical materials. Back to EQ Resources, that's a closing question or your view. We have publicly mentioned that we want to look at opportunities downstream. I think individuals within the group, we have an industrial background, more than probably a geological background, finding the next, or making the next discovery. So we want to make sure that we are very close to the industry, that EQR is part of the industrial ecosystem at the forefront, for all the good reasons that you've already elaborated. So our downstream approach that you are very supportive of, I know that, and given we are here in Vietnam meeting up, and we're still having a live acquisition process going with ATC, an operation that I'm personally very impressed of, just have been there yesterday. Can you share your view on the downstream of not only being a concentrate producer of the asset here in Vietnam, which comes at a low operating cost? Electricity is relatively low cost compared to peer markets in the region, obviously labor. And with your experience, having built one of the largest mines in country, you see that as a great opportunity for us, for EQR?
Yeah, Vietnam is a very stable country politically, right? And so, and it's stable economically. It's had strong growth now for the last 20 years. And so it's got a low labour cost. It's got low energy cost on a relative basis. And one of the key benefits I see of ATC is the fact that the process they have got enables multiple feed sources of different quality, then producing a high quality product at the back end of the process, right? And I think that's unique. Where you have a processing facility that can take different quality products and then convert them into a consistent high quality product, that's a competitive advantage, right? And so Masan High Tech has got that in its APT plant. ATC has got it in its ferrotungsten production, right? And it's as a result of the unique IP that ATC has developed over the last 10 to 15 years, in particular in the last 10 years, as feed sources became more complex. They had to use different products to come up with and maintain their quality. And so that's the value that they were forced into creating. They've done it successfully. And today, it's a significant competitive advantage. And so from a EQ Resources perspective, owning that asset gives EQ Resources optionality to feed lower quality feed into a high quality process that ends up with a high quality product. and then you can sell concentrate, you can sell ferrotungsten, you can work with different downstream partners. The nature of tungsten is you need partnerships with your downstream so that you partner up the products that they need for their customers, and that creates strategic long-term benefits and partnerships. And I think ATC opens up that door for EQ Resources.
Absolutely, absolutely. Greg, I thank you. I think it's very exciting. We look forward. We get to work on all these initiatives, and yeah, we kicked it off today here with the introduction of Greg and his input. So let's get to work, Greg, and yeah, we'll be back on soon and continue with the series.
Thank you.